Welcome to the Blue Oasis podcast. This is the podcast for finding peace and prosperity, learning the history of hobbies, as well as developing a little side hustle. If you want to find peace and prosperity in your life, this is your show. Get ready. You're listening to the Blue Oasis podcast. I am your host, Adam Rothstein. All right, let's get to the show. And welcome back to the Blue Oasis podcast. I'm your host, Adam Rothstein. With me today is Lance Cayko. Even though it doesn't appear that way, that's how it's pronounced, as I am told. Lance, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Adam.
You are welcome. So you have started a business during the Great Recession, and you were in architecture and building. So can I ask, how did you get started, and can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm 40 years old, and my story starts when I was 13 years old. Basically, I grew up in Northwest North Dakota in between a sugar beet farm and a cattle ranch. And on the sugar beet farm, I tried irrigating those sugar beets with my dad one summer, and I lasted about a week. It's not because I'm not good at hard, I don't like hard work. I really love hard work. As a matter of fact, I just had my tool bags on today. Went back into the field and was framing up a custom she shed for a lady. But what it really was I didn't get along with my dad too well at that point in my life. And the work just was not really fulfilling for me. It was also just kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, when you're irrigating sugar beets, what you have to do is you have to get up about every 3 or 4 hours for 24 hours and go change water. And then the mosquitoes almost carry you away. So I lasted about a week, and I told my dad, I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of the summer. Don't worry, my best friend Chris wants to come help you. He'll fill my spot. And he goes, well, you got to do something. And I go, yeah, I agree. Obviously, like, I like to work and I need money. So I was 13 years old, and that night I called his best friend Bruce. His best friend Bruce was a general contractor, and I'd always been that kind of kid who, whenever I'd go on like a family trip or a road trip, I'd always have a sketchbook. My grandmother would take us on a lot of trips. She always encouraged drawing. I was always building with Legos. I always liked creating things. I was always a creative person. So I had asked Bruce if he had any openings, and he said, yeah, we just got a big contract. We're going to do 80 roofs this summer. We're going to wake up at like 4 or 5 each day. We're going to have the roof torn off by 10 a.m. and we're going to have it put back on by 3 p.m. I'll pay you $7.25 an hour, and you can be my gopher. And I go, oh, cool. What's that? He goes, well, when you can go for this, you can go for that. When you're done going for the things, then you can get up on the roof, Lance, and you can learn how to roof. I was the best dang gopher that he ever had. And about halfway through the summer, Bruce said something to me that kind of changed my whole outlook on how businesses even work, because my dad, again, was just a farmhand. If it wasn't for him, God bless him, the farm would have went under. I'm glad he did all that and supported the family and everything. My mother is a dental assistant, but neither of them had any sort of entrepreneurial acumen at all into what they wanted to. They never did anything like that. So the other thing too is, like, growing up in a lower middle class household where I was really anxious about money all the time, right? So to the point where I remember one time I was like again 13, 14, that my aunt had gifted me a computer. She said, he needs to have a computer. And this is kind of when home PCs and home computers were just sort of newish. And I remember getting those AOL CDs in the mail, and I put one in the little CD-ROM there, and I had a modem and everything. And you had to dial up, and the dial up in this case where I lived I had to dial all the way to Fargo, so it was long distance. And I didn't think there was any long distance with the internet in that kind of way, right? Sure enough, there was, and my mom and dad got this $1,000 bill in the mail, and you would have thought it was the most life-threatening amount of money to them ever. Like, to me, $1,000 is not a lot of money these days, inflation and all that sort of thing. So back to Bruce, what he told me was, he said, he goes, well, how much do you think I'm charging the clients for these per hour? I pay you $7.25 an hour. Like, what do you think I charge them? And he was just trying to test me just to see, because he noticed, like, I was one of those guys on the crew that he maybe never really had. I mean, pretty smart guy, tested with a pretty high IQ. Like, what are you doing working construction type of thing, right? And he said to me, and I said, well, $7.25 an hour, right? And he said, no. And he laughed at me and he goes, no, I charge them 3 to 4 times what I pay you. And I go, oh, well, why do you do that? And he goes, well, I have all the overhead, right? He explained, I got to pay insurance. I'll take all this risk on. And he said, when I'm done paying for your salary, I'm done paying for all the insurance, I'm done paying for all the overhead, then I get something called profit. And the dichotomy between the dad who raised me and Bruce was pretty much the rich dad, poor dad story all over again. It wasn't so much that Bruce was very wealthy and flamboyant with all the things. He just never worried about money. If he wanted he just had freedom from the anxiety of money from that. So it all clicked for me then. I was like, oh, well, I should just be a general contractor like Bruce. Like, I should be a builder one day. And so what I did then every single summer up until I was 18 and graduated high school is I worked a different trade of construction. And because I was like, I'm going to be like Bruce. So the next summer was like framing. Next summer after that was like concrete. Next summer after that was like siding and windows and all whatever kind of trades there were. I graduated high school with a class of about 20 people, town of 500. Could probably, if I would have had more choice in school, I think I probably would have been I would have graduated with a higher GPA. I just didn't apply myself because there's no choice. And for me, as a guy who really thrives when there's freedom, then I do well, right? And so all of a sudden, everybody was going to school, and I was like, well, I should at least go for 2 years to go to be a contractor. I'll go to Building Construction Tech in North Dakota State School of Science in Wapaton. And when I got there, that was the first time I got to pick what I wanted to do. And then I started to accelerate. I was on a dean's list every semester. I figured out how to monetize going to school. I accelerated and graduated at the top of the class. And then by the time I got to that last semester, we did a capstone project. And what that capstone project was you need to build a house. So you're going to build a house with all the other students there, foundation all the way to last nail in the roof type of thing. And I got to looking at the blueprints. So this was our big project. First time I got to really kind of look at blueprints, and I'm a truther. And so for me, knowing the why behind people do things is I'm a little bit on the autistic spectrum too. So I just have to know the truth. So I was like, why did the architects draw it like this? Like what made the architects decide to make these decisions like that? And then I started thinking, I'm 20 years old. I have no children. I have no debt. I figured out how to monetize going to school. I actually love going to school now. What if I applied 70 miles north up to North Dakota State University for the architecture program? So I did. I got in. First class in the freshman class in that program is 350 people. And then it's pared down to 50 people in your second year. And then you're in the program. So it's very, very competitive. I got in, and the same sort of trajectory happened again. I was almost a 4.0 student, which was like the opposite of high school. I figured out how to monetize going to school again. Graduated right at the top of the class, winning the Peter F. McKinsey Award. And then the Great Recession happened. So I landed one of the last internships in Colorado only in 2008, only to be laid off about 9 months later in that summer. And that's where our origin story starts for our architecture firm, F9 Productions. So, my business partner and I were best friends, Al Gore. He graduated at the top of the class too, North Dakota State University. And everybody thought, you guys should start an architecture firm one day, because we had teamed up for a skyscraper project in our fourth year, which we won. And, some of the professors were just like, you guys are like this perfect tag team duo, because I'm more engineer-like, Al is more ethereal, and, he looks at big picture sort of things and more artistic and stuff like that. Less engineering is what I'm trying to say. And when I got laid off, knowing that the writing was on the wall, I fell back on my construction skills in that work set. And I put out these Craigslist ads knowing I was going to get laid off. And I had all of these housewives calling me and like to do all this handyman work. I never had to take unemployment. I worked for cash. And then I was working every morning. I would build these 3D models on this old website that used to be called it's called Turbo Squid. And this is when architects were transitioning from AutoCAD, like 2D, into 3D Revit modeling software. So all of the old 2D drawings and stuff and all these CAD details had to get translated into this new software system. I was loading so many models on the TurboSquid website that I got introduced by, or that I got noticed by the CFO, and she contacted me and said, hey, you're kind of on our radar here. Like, are you interested in more of this work? And eventually I landed a pretty big contract with ArcCat, and that laid the platform for us having a steady amount of work. And then Al came down and we started our business out of his apartment.
Okay, I just wanted to get in. So when you say Al Gore, you don't mean the actual Al Gore, obviously.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, his name is Al Gore. His full name is Alexander Gore. He's from Rochester, Minnesota. So I do mean the real Al Gore.
Okay. Okay, so because I went to high school with the Taylor Swift and okay, but not the vice president.
Not the vice president, but my Al Gore is very real.
Okay, and so is the Taylor Swift I went to high school.
There you go.
With. When you were loading the from the website, you used CDs and you used all of that, and it was and was it very frustrating to manage projects with that?
Can you repeat your question, because I feel like I'm not sure that question is cogent with my origin story.
All right, were there frustrating aspects with the designs and as you said earlier, loading it to the website?
The TurboSquid website?
Yeah, that's
very easy. That was easy to do.
Oh, it was. All right. Okay, so architecture, we covered that. Was there a time that you felt that you weren't going to make it during that 2008 recession, a specific test of faith, if you will?
After I got laid off and started the firm?
Yeah.
Okay. So so laid off, started the firm. Al Gore came down. My real Al Gore came down. He rented the apartment kitty corner to mine up one flight of stairs, and it was perfect. It was a 1-bedroom apartment. Our garage story, you hear these stories about like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos starting businesses out of a garage. Everybody loves that kind of story. It's all, it's very Americana sort of thing. Ours was his dining room. That's where we started the business out of. We starved for about 4 years, meaning we didn't really make any money. We made just enough money to pay ourselves a steady salary. And then in 2013, everything started to take off. The economy started to pick up. We also got lecturing jobs at CU Boulder, and suddenly we found ourselves not being able to complete all of the work on our own, and we had to hire people. And since 2013, over the past decade, we have seen steady growth, growing from a firm of just low 6 figures to higher 7 figures, culminating with us winning the Best of Mile High Award, which means we're, in customer service wise, the top rated architecture firm in Colorado. So definitely there was a lot of fears, but in terms of failing, I guess I never really, there was no reason to look back. If I'm a 90s kid, and one of the things I think that all of us do if we grew up in the 90s is you couldn't get away from, the Michael Jordan story. So I used getting laid off as that chip on my shoulder, just like Michael Jordan used, in the sense that he didn't make the basketball team, I think, after his sophomore year, and then worked his butt off that summer and then made starting lineup that junior year. That's my outlook. And now at the age of 40, every single time something negative happens in my life, I get excited. I actually get excited because I know every single time that there's a negative that happens, a positive will counteract that. I'm more nervous when a positive happens and there's no negative attached to it, because I know the negative is coming, and then I get anxiety.
So is that like, millennials think like this, life's going so good and nothing is, getting you down, and then you think to yourself, you're a bit more cautious, something negative is going to happen to you. So there's definitely an inverse to that. But but with I guess with every door that closes, another one opens, sort of thing. That's sort of the mindset.
100%. Well, it's physics. So electricity doesn't work unless there's a positive and a negative. If you've ever, that's just basic science. That's just basic science, right? I mean, there's a lot of science at this point we don't trust, with the COVID nonsense and all that. But there is the reality of positive and negative. That is a fact, right? So if a negative happens in your life, there will be a positive to counteract that. I am just stating basic rules of life.
Oh, okay. So now I think I may be jumping ahead here, but
Sure.
how would you now you were using guerrilla marketing when advertising the firm?
Yeah. So we actually got our clients. The tricky thing that we had to navigate through was when we first started the firm, we were not licensed architects. We were just designers. That's all we could call ourselves. We had to look up all the rules and play by the rules and see what kind of typologies we could do. And for example, basically it kind of limited us to very, very small commercial industrial jobs and single family homes. That's all we could really do, which was fine. Every architect likes to draw a house typically. And so we had to fly under the radar in a way. And one of the first things we did is Craigslist used to actually be really great for advertising. And the reason why it was is because you could actually put in images in your post and whatever you were trying to advertise for. You could write a little bit of HTML. So when I was doing that advertising for the handyman stuff, that's sort of where I hacked this method. And so what we would do is we would advertise our architecture, our design services on Craigslist, and we would just beat all these other architects who would just write things out. Everything looked it was just all jumbly and wordy, and we just stood out because we made it look like you push the easy button with us. The other thing we did is we put out an ad, a fake ad right away. And some people listening to this might go like, well, this is pretty sleazy. I don't care if you think it's sleazy. It's business. This is how it works. We put out a fake ad and we said, we pretended as if we had a piece of land in the mountains and we were going to build a 2,000 square foot cabin. And this was right at the height of the Great Recession. So architects were looking for work like crazy. We got over 100 inquiries and proposals for our fake project. We compiled all that data. We got to look at all the way other architects and designers were proposing their services. And we picked out some of the best formulas that they had for it. So the best looking, the most easy to digest, the most clean kind of proposals, something that was like appealing to people, especially like us. And then we put all of the data into a spreadsheet and we figured out what we should actually be charging. We weren't going to be the low person. We weren't going to be the high person. We were going to be in the middle and then beat everybody with customer service. That's guerrilla marketing 101 and the basis for everything that we started from. I have other stories too, if you'd like to hear them.
So in a way, you were kind of like the pioneer of SEO, but at the time back in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
I don't know about that. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, it was just simple Craigslist ads. I don't know about pioneering SEO.
Now I
wish I was that cool.
I mean, it's still a function because you still were using keywords in a way. And
no, we weren't really using keywords. We were just our method is that so when you post like a service on Craigslist, if you post like at 7 a.m. then if somebody posts 7:10 a.m. you go down, throughout the day, right? People keep posting, you go down. So we would be very disciplined with our posts. We would basically leave them. We would post like every 3 days so that we would be at the top of the list every 3 days. It was simply recognizing how Craigslist worked and trying to keep yourself at the top of the list.
So that's not like just purchasing some services from Google or Facebook and then just having that go out as in traditional SEO.
No, not at all.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, just wanted to clear the airways with that. So your first test run came from Craigslist. Did you try any other sites after that?
Yeah, we've been a user of Thumbtack, geez, I think since 2010. So that was another one that we kind of jumped on right away. We still use Thumbtack to this day. A lot of other architects kind of frown and foo-foo on it. The problem with most architects, which I actually appreciate that they do this, and I encourage them, keep being bad business people. You keep being bad business people, architects, I'll keep crushing it. I will keep making the money, winning the awards, doing all the other stuff. You keep trying to be an artist, and I will be a business person plus an artist. So they frown on that sort of thing, but we've gotten award-winning architecture clients from that website. If anybody goes to our website and they look at F9 Productions / Eastwatch House, or they take a look at Eldorado climbing walls. Those are very modern, beautiful projects, award-winning. We made the cover of Builder magazine with the Eastwatch House. So yeah, and then obviously we had our website at the core of everything. But some other ways that we've done guerrilla marketing is, like, for example, in 2012. So Alex and I went on a trip with our girlfriends at the time down in the Southwest United States. And if anybody's driven through the Southwest United States in the summer, think of the Grand Canyon, think of Moab, think of like that kind of landscape. It looks apocalyptic, especially if there's a thunderstorm rolling through. It looks very much apocalyptic. It looks like a nuclear bomb went off and it's just this barren, crazy land, right? The reason why I'm kind of setting this up is because everybody knows, if they need a reminder, what was going on in 2012. Everybody had heard about this Mayan calendar and the end of the world and the apocalypse. That never happened, obviously, because it's 2023. We're sitting here talking today, Adam. But we knew that the media and Google itself, the Google Trend searches, it was going to be like apocalypse and doomsday. It was going to be pretty themey throughout the year. So on that trip, we were like, we should do our fun project this year, because we made it a goal that we would do one fun unpaid project per year to try to get some guerrilla press, because we didn't have any advertising money. I mean, Craigslist was free to post, so that's where the guerrilla marketing comes in. Like, there was no extra money for us to post. So we came up with doomsdaydwellings.com, and that website is still alive. And we came up with 4 different kinds of houses. The Genesis house protects you. It's all theoretical. It protects you from a nuclear blast. The house protects you from earthquakes. Flood house protects you from floods, and seed protects you from fires. We got enough traction on that website, and we got recognized by Modern in Denver, which is the local magazine here that is equivalent to Dwell magazine, just to put it in perspective for your listeners. And we actually landed a 7-page spread in the middle of that magazine, and then our name on the cover of that magazine. And when we were getting photographed and working with the editors and everything for that, we asked them, we're like, how much would this cost per page? And it would have cost $1,500 per page. We did not have any kind of advertising money like that. So that's another good example of like how we've used just non-traditional ways to get into traditional media without having any money. The last one is probably the best one. Is everybody remembers when Jeff Bezos was looking at different cities, about 2017, I think is when it was, to put Amazon's headquarters, their second headquarters in. And all of these cities were like clamoring over Amazon, trying to do all kinds of tax incentives and all these things to lure them to their city. Denver really didn't give anything. They weren't really that interested in it, but we were interested in the idea of, what if we put Amazon's headquarters in the middle of Denver, and we proposed the tallest skyscraper in North America? What would that look like? So you can even go to our website now. You can take a look at it, F9 Productions, and type in Amazon HQ too. And so Al spent about a day and a half, 2 days coming up with the concept renderings and everything. And then I spent the next day after that on social media, targeting all of the local media stations, like their Facebook posts and everything. And I would post our stuff in there. And we finally got noticed by a couple outlets, Fox 31 and Denver 7. They were so enamored with our proposal. And then we even sent emails to Jeff Bezos and his team, and we tracked them, and we saw that like Amazon actually ended up opening them. And now obviously we didn't get the commission or anything like that, but Denver 7, Fox 31, they actually came up to our office. They filmed us. They asked us about the proposal, and then we got in a couple of local papers about it because we did our own press releases. And one of the papers, lo and behold, there was a local developer who noticed us, and they said, wow, these guys, this is exactly, I have a piece of land. I want to develop 14 townhomes. These guys are local. They seem like they have fresh ideas. I want to work with them. And so we landed a townhome project out of that whole media blitz with that. So for us, the guerrilla marketing really worked early on in our careers when we had no money.
Nice, nice. Now you've designed projects in North Dakota and Denver. Has there been a difference between each state? Is there any regulations that might come into play between different state laws that could affect a project's development?
Well, yeah. So, and to be clear, so we've been licensed in Idaho, we've been licensed in North Dakota, we've been licensed in Tennessee, we're licensed in Colorado. So we've done work all over the state of Colorado. So not just Denver, the entire state of Colorado, the Western Slope, the Front Range, the Plains, all of that. It actually is not so much state to state. It's the government has gotten so big, even locally, and so bureaucratic that actually everything varies from city to city and county to county. So that's the real way to answer this question, right? So if I'm trying to build something in Boulder County versus Weld County, and these are both counties down in Colorado for the record, vastly different. If I try to build just a single family house in Boulder County, it's going to take me maybe up to 2 years before I have a building permit, just working with the government. If I try to build a house in Weld County, it's going to maybe take me about 3 months. Then I can build. That's the biggest difference. The biggest difference is all the planners and the planning side of things and having to go through that process depending on just where those places are politically. This is a fact. If it's a deep blue area, it is going to be very difficult to get a building permit. If it is a deep red area, it's very, very easy.
Okay. So what state has probably been, or what area do you think has been the best, for the easiest to manage,
South Dakota.
manage a project?
Yeah, South Dakota. South Dakota was the easiest, not so much to manage. South Dakota is the easiest to get a building permit. There was a couple that I went to college with that called us probably 4 or 5 years ago to design their house out in the countryside. And I was like, okay, can I just call the county? Can't even remember what county it is. And they were like, yeah, just feel free, call the county. And I called the county and they go, no joke. I said, hey, I'm an architect down here in Colorado. Do you guys have like a building permit checklist? Meaning a lot of these entities will have a checklist and they'll say like, you need to have floor plans, elevations, sections, engineered drawings, whatever. They'll have a whole list of stuff. This county just simply told me flat out. They go, well, do you own the land? And I go, well, my clients do. And they go, build what you want. We don't care. That was it. Again, deep red, very low population. Do what you want.
Okay. So what advice would you have to anyone that wants to come up and be an architect, at all? And what advice would you give them before going into it, rather?
Oh, I think you need to start early from the standpoint of building things with your hands, like I did. You need to build stuff. You need to go work trades. You need to understand how the buildings actually go together. Because the problem with architects is like a lot of times to them it's just lines on paper. But as soon as the rubber meets the road, as soon as you get those lines on paper out in the field, and the guys are out there in the 90-degree weather, literally risking their lives every day to make the civilized worlds happen, it's a reality. And if you don't know how your lines need to reflect a future reality and how things actually get put together, you are not going to be a good architect. You can't just be an artist and be an architect. You have to be a half building scientist, half artist in order to be an architect. So the more hands-on construction knowledge that you have before you even enter architecture school will prove the most valuable to you in the long run.
And getting out in the fields is obviously the most important factor to this all. And with all that, sorry, just a bit nervous here, but The classroom. Any advice for studying when they go into an engineering class or their first architecture class? Any advice when they first enter the class, or how you studied?
Well, the biggest thing I think I matured. I was a very mature 21-year-old architecture student because as soon as I got into architecture school, I had a child after the first year I was in school. So it made me grow up very quickly, meaning like there's no more drinking, there's no more smoking, there's no more partying. There is discipline, there is consistency that needs to happen. There is going to bed early, there's waking early. And if you do those things, if you can discipline yourself and you're an architecture student, you can avoid this nasty word and the phrase that people still giggle about and like they think it's okay to have, and that is pulling an all-nighter. You do not want to pull all-nighters. All-nighters are unacceptable. That's no way to live. I never had to pull an all-nighter in my last couple years of school because I was disciplined. I was the first one at studio. I was the last one to leave studio every day. And that's what you got to do. You have to live it. You have to earn those 10,000 hours. You need to master your craft, but you have to, you got to just, no more drinking, no more smoking. Like this is your life. And trust me, it'll pay dividends if you just sacrifice the fun. The fun can come later. The fun can come after you get out of school, get a job, get a wife, start making some money, then go to Cancun and party with your wife. Go to Vegas. You can still do that stuff afterwards. In fact, you'll probably even have a better time afterwards. Because you're not going to be with a bunch of yahoos from college who are, immature and that sort of thing. So you really, if you can do that, if you can, especially mastering the mornings, if you can then continue that into your professional year or professional, career after that, super important. That's how I get so many things done. That's how I'm an architect, a builder, a podcaster, a professor, a professional fisherman, a philanthropist. Is I go to bed. I don't drink. I don't party. I'm not boring. Trust me. I'm a very fun person, but I go to bed early. I wake up early, and those golden hours in the morning are intensely critical. Getting up and getting ahead of the world between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. every single day, and not letting the world get ahead of you, that enables you to level up.
Incredible. I wasn't a huge drinker in college. I didn't drink much, and I played hockey too. So in college, so like there's a huge incentive to do it, but I mean, whether it's working out early in the morning to go to practice at 7 a.m. or just studying for class, I mean, it's very necessary in the long run, and I think and if you can instill that at a young age, whether it's with practice or just studying or going to your job and just waking up at 5 or 6 a.m., you're going to be much better off. And I've seen teammates of mine like just bomb tests from drinking all night, and like one of my teammates was bragging about getting a 60 once, but I mean, it's not going to be beneficial if you have that mentality of
100%. 100%. I've interviewed so we have about 500 episodes. I think we're at like 503 now on our podcast. We've been doing it for 6 years, since 2017. And half of the shows are me interviewing some of the most successful people in the world. John McAfee, for example, remember the late, great John McAfee of McAfee Virus Software. With the exception of him, because he was a drinker and a drug guy and all that stuff later on in his career, or whatever, later on in his life, rather. But beyond him, all the other very successful multi-millionaires that I've interviewed, almost every single one of them do three fundamental things, and their life is successful just because they do these three fundamental things. It's uncanny how often it is. They don't drink. They go to bed early. They wake early, and they schedule everything. They make appointments for everything. They make appointments to go on a date with their wife. They make appointments to take their children to the soccer game. They really take control of their lives every single day by having a schedule and keeping things organized in that sort of way.
And of course, I scheduled this. I was ready to go. So there's that. And I'll add that having your calendar synced, whether that's Google, your iCalendar, or your Outlook, or just putting it on your phone. And my phone's across the room, but just having it ready to go, and even alerts. You're going to be much better off as well, and you're going to be less likely to miss something. So don't squander this opportunity of all this technology, because you can have alarms set and notifications set too, and that is a huge benefit when it comes to scheduling in the modern day.
Yeah, and it doesn't make you. A lot of people, when they initially hear me talk like that about I schedule everything, I mean, I do. I have a date with I have a date tomorrow, and I've set it on the schedule. Stuff like that even is very important, because so what the reaction that people sometimes get is they say like, well, that seems like it's a very anal way to live. Like, you seem like minute by minute. And it's like, no, it's not quite like that. I mean, you can still be sort of loose. It makes your life structured. So then you have the freedom. If somebody says, for instance, my friend Robert is coming into town on Monday of next week, and because I have a nice organized schedule, I just pulled it up while I was talking to him, and because he gave me a couple of days that maybe we could have lunch, and I go, oh yeah, Monday's open. Now I'll put it in the calendar, and there you go. I made space for you. It allows you to make space for people, for yourself, for your life.
But and I mean, and from the scheduling aspect to the architecture, it's structure that binds everything together.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%. Yeah. Discipline equals freedom. Having a structured life equals freedom. None of the being financially well off equals freedom. Debt is slavery, right? Being subject to everybody else's schedule is slavery. Like, you were trying to avoid those things.
Yeah. Okay. So at the 37-minute mark, anything else you want to? Any advice you have for anyone else?
Yes. If so, remember, every single time a negative happens in your life, get excited because a positive will happen. I'm serious. That is the mindset. That is the outlook to have. It is a challenge from God every single time. He is testing you, and it's your duty to respond. Stand up straight with your shoulders back every single day. Be proud of who you are. Be disciplined. Go to bed early. Wake up early, and don't sweat over the little things. Like, the little things will pass. The bigger things, you don't even worry about that, because like, if you, as long as you're doing those disciplined things and you're headed on the right road every day, you're gonna be in great shape. You're gonna be in great shape.
Perfect. What a way to end the segment. Do you have any links or YouTube links, LinkedIn, anything you want to put in the show notes?
100%. Yeah. If everybody can go to linkedin.com and just type in Lance, Lance, last name Cayko, Cayko, and I will link in with you. Even if you're a spam bot, I'll do it. If you want to hear about how we started the firm in more detail, what we do on a day-to-day basis, listening to other entrepreneurs that are very successful, you can go to insidethefirmpodcast.com. If you want to keep up with anything we're doing architecture-wise, you can go to f9productions.com and sign up for a newsletter, and follow us there.
Okay, perfect. And before I close this segment out, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Rate this 5 stars on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get this podcast. Write a little review as well. And if you like hockey, check out the hockey podcast. That is the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. And the links to everything will be in the show notes. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and take care.